The old Braylock Library had stood for over a century, its brick facade worn by the harsh winds of countless storms and the passing of time. Nestled on the outskirts of the small coastal town of Ashbrook, it was a place where history lingered like the dust motes that danced in the morning sunlight. Its grand wooden doors, carved with intricate scenes of forgotten tales, creaked like whispers of the past whenever they swung open. For decades, it had been a refuge for scholars, dreamers, and seekers of forgotten knowledge. Yet, in recent years, a chilling air had settled over its halls. Strange occurrences had begun to plague the library. Books fell from shelves without reason, pages turned themselves as if guided by unseen hands, and whispers echoed through empty corridors. It was enough to keep even the most devoted patrons at bay. But for Detective Arthur Langley, this was exactly the kind of mystery that stirred his soul. Arthur was a tall man in his late 40s, his dark hair streaked with silver and his sharp blue eyes ever alert. He had a reputation for solving the unsolvable, for finding truth where others saw only chaos. When the library's head curator, Margaret Hawthorne, reached out to him with a trembling voice, he couldn't resist the challenge. "Detective Langley," Margaret had said over the crackling phone line, "there's something wrong here. The whispers, the shadows. I fear this place is haunted." Arthur, never one to dismiss the fears of the fearful, arrived at Braylock Library on a crisp autumn morning. The air was tinged with the faint smell of salt from the nearby sea, and the gulls cried out like lost souls overhead. He pushed open the heavy wooden doors, their hinges groaning in protest, and stepped into the dimly lit foyer. The thick, musty air wrapped around him like the embrace of forgotten memories. Margaret met him at the entrance, her frail form shivering despite the woolen shawl draped around her shoulders. Her gray eyes darted nervously around the darkened stacks as if expecting a ghostly figure to emerge at any moment. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice echoing slightly in the vast, empty space. "Of course," Arthur replied, his gaze sweeping over the grand staircase that curved up to the second floor. "Why don't you show me where the disturbances have been happening?" Margaret led him deeper into the labyrinthine rows of shelves. The air grew colder as they walked, and Arthur noticed faint scratches on the polished wooden floor, as if something had been dragged through the halls. They passed the ancient card catalog, its tiny drawers half open, their contents scattered across the floor like the remnants of a forgotten past. "It started in the old archives," Margaret said, her voice quivering. "We heard whispers, pages rustling in empty rooms. And last week I saw a shadow, a figure, standing in the rare book section." Arthur's pulse quickened. He had heard countless ghost stories in his career, but rarely had they come from someone as grounded as Margaret. They reached the back of the library, where a heavy iron door marked Archives loomed. Margaret handed him a small brass key, her hand shaking. "I can't go in," she whispered, stepping back. "I'm sorry." Arthur nodded, understanding the fear that clung to her like a wet cloak. He slid the key into the lock, the cold metal biting into his skin, and pushed the door open. The room beyond was even darker, the air colder, as if the very walls held their breath. Dust hung in the air, disturbed by his presence, swirling in the beam of his flashlight. As he stepped inside, the door swung shut behind him with a sharp, echoing click. Arthur froze, his heart hammering in his chest. He spun around, but the door remained firmly closed. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to remain calm. He had faced worse than creaking doors and cold drafts. He moved deeper into the archives, his footsteps muffled by the thick layer of dust that coated the stone floor. Old manuscripts and forgotten ledgers lined the shelves, their pages yellowed and brittle. He ran his fingers along the spines, feeling the rough texture beneath his touch, the faint whisper of history beneath his fingertips. Then he heard it, a soft, rustling sound, like the whisper of fabric against stone. He spun around, his flashlight flickering as if the very air sought to extinguish it. There, in the corner of the room, a shadow moved. It shifted, taking form, coalescing into the faint outline of a young woman. She was translucent, her form flickering like a candle's dying flame. Her eyes, hollow and sorrowful, met Arthur's, and for a brief moment he felt a wave of cold wash over him, chilling him to the bone. "Help me," she whispered, her voice a fragile wisp of air. "Please, help me." Arthur took a slow step forward, his heart pounding. "Who are you? What happened to you?" The ghost's form flickered, her outline shimmering like ripples in a pond. She reached out, her hand passing through a nearby stack of books, sending them tumbling to the ground. Arthur flinched but held his ground. "My name is Eleanor," she whispered, her voice growing faint. "I was wronged, betrayed. My story, it was stolen, forgotten." Arthur felt a surge of determination. He had seen the pain of forgotten souls before, the agony of those whose lives had been erased by the passage of time. He knew that the only way to free her was to uncover the truth, to shine a light on the darkness that clung to her memory. Over the next several days, Arthur scoured the library, piecing together the fragments of Eleanor's life. He discovered that she had been a young author, her work stolen and her reputation ruined by a jealous rival in the late 1800s. Her tragic end had been buried beneath layers of forgotten history, her voice silenced by time itself. In the end, Arthur found her final, unpublished manuscript hidden in the walls of the archive, wrapped in yellowed cloth and bound with a ribbon of faded blue. As he read her words, the air around him grew warmer, the oppressive darkness lifting. He felt her presence, a gentle brush against his cheek, a whisper of gratitude on the wind. When he returned to the archives one final time, the chill was gone. The shadows had receded, and the air was light once more. As he walked out of the library, the grand wooden doors creaked shut behind him, not with a groan of protest, but with a whisper of relief. Eleanor's spirit had found peace, her story finally told. But as Arthur reached his car, he felt the faintest chill, a whisper of a presence lingering in the crisp autumn air. He turned back to the library, its towering silhouette framed against the pale morning sky, and thought he saw a flicker of movement in the second-floor window. A final, fleeting shadow. Eleanor, it seemed, would never truly be forgotten. Questions for you. Do you believe that the spirits of those with unfinished stories truly linger in the places they once loved? If you were in Arthur's shoes, would you have had the courage to enter the dark, haunted archives alone? What do you think became of Margaret Hawthorne, the curator? Did she find peace knowing Eleanor's spirit was finally at rest, or does she still hear whispers in the empty halls at night? Have you ever felt the presence of someone long gone in a place filled with history and memories? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more spine-chilling mysteries. Thanks for watching.